Hi there, my name is Porsha Lauri. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm talking to you about one of my favorite TV shows of all time, Boy Meets World. I love this show. I've seen every episode about 1,000,000 times. I own all of it on DVD. Anytime someone wants to talk about a TV show from the 90s, this is always my go-to. But there are a few mistakes in the show that no one ever really talks about and the writers never really gave us answers to. So I thought I'd talk about them with you guys. If you're talking about TV shows from when we were kids, please do me a solid and slap that like button at the bottom. If you like talking about TV shows, movies, and anything pop culture related, go ahead and hit my subscribe button, and if you hit that bell next to it, you'll be notified every time I upload. Let's go ahead and get into it. So there's a lot of things in Boy Meets World that I think they kind of left open-doored. Like there weren't a lot of consistency in like storylines and things like that. And I don't want to focus too much on storylines. I really want to focus on the major things that are like, why didn't they fix this? Or like talk about it. Also, sidebar, I'm not going to be talking about Girl Meets World. And it's not because I don't like Girl Meets World. I actually really like that show. I think they're different storylines. I don't think Girl Meets World was actually meant for Boy Meets World fans. I think it was for the parents of new kids so that they could watch a show that they would also be able to enjoy as well. You know what I mean? So once again, I'm not talking about anything Girl Meets World related. So if they answer some of these things in Girl Meets World, you can tell me about it in the comments, but I'm not talking about it here. So the first order of business is siblings. I feel like this happens a lot, like in older shows. I feel like the audience is so aware of these kind of little kinks in shows that they don't do it as much anymore. But I feel like in the late 80s and 90s, like there were a lot of times where they would cast someone to be part of a family, and then when that person didn't work for the role or they just decided they were unnecessary, they would just forget that that character ever existed. And that definitely happened in Boy Meets World. So both Shawn and Topanga have a sister that appears in one episode of season 1 and then never again. In season 1, there's an episode where Corey is trying to fit in with the cool kids and he wants to straighten his hair. He overhears some girls talking about someone and calling him Brillo Pad, and he assumes that they're talking about him. So he decides, I'm gonna straighten my hair so that way I'll fit in better. The person who comes over to straighten his hair is Shawn's sister.
After rewatching the episode, I realized that Shawn's sister Stacey is not actually in the episode, she's just referred to, so my bad on that one.
And a very interesting dynamic had they kept her casted on the show, but for whatever reason, she just disappeared. And then later on in that season, we see that Topanga also has a sister named Nebula. And Eric was also interested in her. So again, like the dynamics would have been really interesting if they had at least kept one of the sisters around. But like, why did they bring them up in season 1 and then never again? Because there are several times where both Shawn and Topanga talk about being kind of an only child. Even though Shawn does have Jack, we don't know that Jack exists until he's convenient for the plot for him to exist. You feel me? In between season 2 and season 3, there was a lull of time where Morgan was just missing. Then all of a sudden Morgan came back, and I remember them making that joke of like, I've been in timeout for a long time. But I remember her coming back, and I remember even as a kid thinking, that's not Morgan. That's an imposter Morgan. What happened to Morgan? And it wasn't until like way later on when they were doing all these reunions and stuff that we found out what happened. But child Porsha had a very different explanation for what happened to the original Morgan, aka Lily Nixea. So when I was little, I remember watching Boy Meets World, because Boy Meets World started airing in, I believe, 93, 95, somewhere in there, which would make me 3 and or 5. I remember watching Boy Meets World, and I also remember watching one of those True Hollywood stories of Poltergeist. I was a weird kid. I remember in that documentary about Poltergeist, they were talking about the little girl from Poltergeist and how she had died after the movie came out. And I remember thinking when I saw the image of the little girl from Poltergeist, I was like, I think that's Morgan from Boy Meets World. So for years upon years, I thought the original Morgan died. It was like the timing of those two things weren't happening at the same time. I want to say Poltergeist had come out at the end of the 80s or very, very beginning of the 90s. but there was no time where that would have made sense. They weren't even the right ages. But yeah, for the longest time, I thought the original Morgan died. I don't know the full story of why she ended up leaving. I think her parents just wanted her to be a normal kid and not have all this fame and notoriety anymore. I told you I wasn't gonna talk about Girl Meets World, but just a sidebar, I guess that there's an episode where both Morgans play Morgan in an episode of Girl Meets World. And that I have to find that episode and watch it. That sounds too good to be true. Yeah, then the production never said anything. They never made an announcement. They just expected that if you recast a role, like the audience either A, doesn't care, or B, is too stupid to notice. I don't know. I never understood why no one would like say, hey, by the way, this is happening. This is something that really bugs me. I hate when there's an inconsistent backstory for a character. Like, it bugs me, okay? Like, I need all my little details to be correct, okay? They don't do that very well in Boy Meets World. So the timeline of high school, I'm gonna get into that in a second. But has anyone else noticed that Cory and Topanga's How We Met story is different in like every episode? Because there's an episode where apparently they used to have stroller rides together as babies, which would mean that Amy would be a lot closer to Topanga's mom than we ever see them on the show. It's also said that they met in a sandbox and that Shawn was like teasing Topanga, or Shawn and Cory were teasing Topanga, or Shawn was teasing the both of them. There's another version where Cory says he fell in love with Topanga catching fireflies outside. Like, why is there no consistency whatsoever? It constantly changes, like when they had their first kiss. Because on the show, like from what we see, it was in 6th grade. And remember when they're like, are they handcuffed to each other or something? Maybe they're not handcuffed to each other, but they're doing a school project. Topanga's got all the shit on her face out of one scene. But she's like, oh, I'm one with the universe, or I don't know. She pushes him up against a locker and kisses him. So was that the first time they kissed? Or was it later on, I think they have another first kiss? It's very confusing. I don't understand why there was no clarification. Like, I just want one consistent story. And the other one is the high school timeline. I think everyone's talked this to death, but there are a bunch of grades they just never went to. And for as successful as the show was, I never understood why they didn't just take more time and spend more time in high school. Because it kind of seems like 6th grade, they were pretty close to being the right age. And then probably towards senior year, they were getting quite a bit older than high school age. But if you look at shows like Riverdale or like Beverly Hills 90210, the original or the remake that they did in the early 2000s, all of those kids were way older than high school. So why didn't they just play out every single year of school instead of skipping around? That could have kept the show going so much longer. The other thing is, like, the college years were not nearly as good as the high school years. So they could have really exploited it so that the entire thing could have lasted a lot longer. But that's just my personal opinion. Also, Eric and Jack graduate college in 3 years, so that really angers me as well. How could either of them have done college in less than 4 years, if even finishing college, period? So this is probably my #1 problem with Boy Meets World. It's the only thing that I'm like, I really wish this was different. Everything else I can pretty much live with. But why did they make Eric so stupid? Eric was always a little behind everybody else, or, you know, moved to the beat of his own drummer. But what I don't understand is why they dumbed him down so much. It felt like by the end of the show that I was like, how is this guy existing as an adult? How does he live his life? There's no real reason for why they dumbed him down so much. I think, if anything, he was one of the most talented actors on that show. If you go back and you look at some of his real serious episodes, in particular, my personal favorite was the one where he almost adopted the kid that he was the big brother to. There's an episode where Eric, Jack, and Rachel volunteer to be Santa at the mall. Eric's Santa, and they're the elves that are helping him. One of the kids that Eric meets ends up being this little boy, Tommy, who asks him if he could have...
Do you think I can have parents for Christmas?
Well, you see, Tommy here doesn't have a family, so I thought it'd be nice if he could spend Christmas with us.
Eric said we can hang out on weekends.
Yeah, I'll be like he's got a big brother.
Well, he's a good one, Tommy.
Because they kept Tommy around for a while. They have Eric basically going to try to adopt him. Tommy really wants him to be his dad, and Eric just wants to do what's best by Tommy. The whole episode is essentially about how Eric's not ready to be in this role, and there's someone who is, and it's Eric who has to do the adult thing and let go so that Tommy can have this really good life. And to me, that is such a hard story to convey in a show that is so largely comedic. Boy Meets World did do its fair share of serious episodes. A lot of it's just based in comedy. And I think as one of the leading comedians on the show, it shows you his range and what he's capable of, because he can go from this over-the-top Jim Carrey-esque type physical comedian to this, you know, real, down-to-earth, just human wanting to do good to another human. And it bums me out that he just ends up becoming, you know, plays with squirrels. Like, it's cool. I'm not gonna lie to you, I laugh at all those episodes. I enjoy it. I would have kept watching the show if they had done more seasons. But I feel like that character didn't get its proper send-off. I would have liked to have seen Eric really do something with his life. It would have been cool also if he had ended up actually becoming a weatherman. That was something that they hung on to so much through, like, what, season 2 and 3, and then they just kind of forgot about it. So I always thought that was disappointing. And I would watch a spin-off show just about Eric. Like, that's how much I really enjoyed that character. And my last topic is, why the hell couldn't Shawn and Angela get their shit together? Like, I will never understand this. Angela was one of my favorite characters. Like, when she was introduced into the show, to me it was quite a bit of a game changer. When Angela came into Boy Meets World, I finally had someone that I could fully relate to. Like, she was really into poetry. She's like an artist and very independent, and she was also, you know, a little bit of a wisecracker, and she, you know, she was witty and quick and funny.
Mine is Shanae Martin Luther King Boulevard. Gosh, I gotta get some black friends.
Oh, I relate to this girl. She was me growing up. Like, I was Angela, Angela was me. So when Angela ended up dating Shawn, who was like, I'll be my crush on the show, I was like, stoked. I'm like, this is great. This is everything I've ever wanted. This is the greatest show. How did they know that this is where I wanted it to go? And then we're just introduced to the love affair that is Shawn and Angela. And I really don't understand why they couldn't just be together. It always seemed like they wanted to be together, but then they like couldn't because stuff. The first time they break up is in college, when they're first starting college, because, you know, Shawn wants to find himself or whatever other cliche bullshit. Angela's just like, okay, instead of like at all speaking her mind. The girl who speaks her mind all the time, for some reason, she just can't do it with him. And it's because she loves him so much. And it pains me that they can't just be together. So then they break up, and then they end up getting back together with the help of Angela's dad when he comes into town to visit her. And then the ironic part is they get back together, and then they end up breaking up again at the end of the show. Like, the final season, they end up breaking up because Angela's dad wants her to come and live with him in Europe or in Paris or whatever for a year. And like, that's all fine and dandy and like cool. She needs to spend some time with her dad. But like, he just got them back together. Like, he just convinced Angela to think with her heart instead of her head. And then he's like, but also, fuck that guy, come with me. Like, oh, it drives me bananas. I know I said I wasn't gonna talk about Girl Meets World, but here I am, I'm gonna talk about Girl Meets World. They still don't end up together. I watched some of the episode that she was in just to see if they were gonna get, they don't. It drives me wild. I really wanted them to end up together, and I'm really disappointed that they didn't. I'm so glad I finally got it off my chest. I've been holding that inside for so long. So those were some things that were never explained to me about Boy Meets World. If you have anything else to add, if you have any other things from this show that really just irk you, make sure to leave it for me in the comments below. Let's chat about it. Again, if you like this video, do me a solid and slap a like on it. If you would like me to talk about more 90s TV shows or teen shows in general, it's kind of my niche, let me know in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will catch you next time. Bye.